Ammonite was written and directed by Francis Lee, who directed God's Own Country, stars Kate Winslet, Saoirse Ronan, James McArdle, Gemma Jones, and Fiona Shaw, and is set in the UK in the 1840s, some in London and other parts in a small village named Lyme that is on the shore. And it focuses first on the character Mary, played by Kate Winslet, who's a fossil expert, brilliant with science. Fossil piece that she found is in the British Museum. She wanted to keep it, but she had to sell it off for food, lodgings, and to help her mother, basically, because she lives with her mother. They run a family business, and her mother's a bit ill. Mary lives a quiet life and is, again, a really good expert in fossils and just wants to live her life, sell off her stuff, and just, study as she has. And then suddenly, one day, a couple, Roderick, James McArdle, and Charlotte, Saoirse Ronan. I'm going to say right now, I can't tell you how difficult it was to learn how to pronounce Miss Ronan's name. Saoirse Ronan, you look at it, you're not exactly sure how to pronounce, but I do also want to say I'm a big fan of her. They show up. Charlotte's a bit of a shut-in. Roderick's very, very interested in Mary's work, comes out with her and sees how to do this rock study, this fossil study, and decides he wants to do this stuff. He wants to broaden his, broaden his horizons, so to speak. Charlotte's also a bit of a shut-in, and he offers Mary some money to take her under her wing, so to speak, teach her, the world, teach her about fossils, get her out, just get her to breathe some sea air, get his wife back. He wants his wife back, because they have a marriage where you can tell they love each other, but at the same time, it's also a marriage of convenience, and he wants his wife back. He doesn't want his wife to just live as a shut-in. There is one funny moment where just before Charlotte goes to see Mary, the maid tries to get her out of the bed, and she actually throws something at her, and the maid says, "Please don't throw anything more at me, miss." And I don't know why that line made me laugh, but it did. And she meets Mary. They have different ideals and they have different views, but you can tell that there's a genuine camaraderie that they eventually come to. And yes, a romance does blossom among all this drama in the forbidden times of the 1840s, even though shit like this happened between women and men for decades and centuries. People just don't want to admit it. So yes, it is a drama romance movie, and I do want to say at $20, I was a little bit hesitant about, and $20 on Amazon, that is, a little bit hesitant about how this movie was going to be, how it was going to come out, because I thought it was a little too much like Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which I absolutely loved. It came out, wide release earlier this year, and it's one of my favorite movies of the year. And if you were unsure about that movie because it's French, and you don't really care for foreign movies, this is just about as good. It's not quite as good, but it's pretty damn close. And that is in large part due to Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan co-starring in the movie. I fucking love the idea, and this movie did not disappoint. Winslet's been great for over 20 years, and Saoirse Ronan has been great for the last decade plus. The Lovely Bones, Hannah was the first movie I saw of hers where I was like, holy shit, she is going to be phenomenal. She was great in The Host, the Alien version, not the 2006 South Korean movie, and Lady Bird, the Little Women remake, and so many others, but those are two movies that really stick out as far as recent. I knew this was going to be great. They did not disappoint. They were fucking great. They were absolutely great. Mary, the tortured soul, so to speak, that's been hiding who she is, hiding, in the small village. Charlotte, feeling like, she's been locked, like, in this life that she doesn't want. She just wants to break free. And from there, they have really, really good scenes. There's this one part where Kate Winslet, recounts a story, or recounts, what happened with her mother and the children that she had, Mary being one of the only ones to survive, and just really, really haunting. It was really haunting. It was really beautifully told, but very, very scary, and shows what parents go through when they lose children. And that's particularly haunting, exchange of dialogue, but it's also really good and shows why Mary is the way she is. And what's nice about it is it doesn't treat, yes, there are sex scenes, I will say that much, like Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Like those were tastefully done, these are tastefully done, and that's what I'm going to say right there. You can also see other movies for cheaper online if you really want to, if you want to see stuff like that, but this is tastefully done, and it's between two actresses that are fucking at the peak of their powers. I mean, Kate Winslet's been at the peak of her powers for a while, and Saoirse Ronan is on the goddamn ascent. This movie is really good, though. There's a third act twist where or not necessarily a twist, but a third act where you're like, okay, are things going to end the way I think they should? And maybe yes or no. Maybe, and I'm not saying this movie's entirely, unpredictable, But I will say that it ended without hitting you over the head with something. It showed that you can't always find what you... Maybe you can find what you need, but you can't always get what you want. Yes, to cue the Rolling Stones song. Now, I will get into spoilers here in a little bit, but I will say this movie is fucking phenomenal. Absolutely fucking phenomenal. The music, the cinematography, the acting's really goddamn good. Winslet and Ronan are fucking fantastic. But I'm going to get into spoilers here in a little bit, so I would recommend you guys watch this, but $20 is $20. But anyway, let's get into spoilers here. 3, 2, 1, and go. So, basically, after Charlotte, is on, a little excavation with Mary, she decides to just go bathing in the sea. Well, that doesn't work. She develops a fever. This doctor character comes in, and basically says, Mary, you got to take care of her. So that's where the bond starts to form, because Mary sees that Charlotte actually does mean well. And then, the romance develops and stuff like that. And that one particular part where just before the romance develops, she's telling her, Mary's telling her mother lost 8 of 10 kids. I mean, that's a lot of goddamn kids. And took a piece of her every time, with each one. And that would be very, very haunting. Then later, the doctor, seeing that Charlotte recovered, likes Mary, says, hey, Mary, why don't you come with me to this musical event? It's going to be, dinner theater, so to speak, little dinner theater. She says, I want to invite Charlotte, because Charlotte, wants to see this kind of stuff as well. And the doctor's hesitant at first, because of her condition, but says, okay, if that's what you want, that's what we will do. I just came to say cello is what I actually wrote down, because, they're playing cello music. Mary gets jealous because there's this old flame that Mary had from years before, and that's hinted at earlier in a scene when Mary goes to get some, some medicine from her. And it's hinted, but it isn't really revealed until later, and gets jealous and decides to leave. Charlotte's like, well, you left me, and this kind of stuff. And after that, scenes develop. There's actually just one funny line, or one really good line, rather. It says, you were the most fascinating person there tonight, and I think the most beautiful. That was Charlotte to Mary. A lot of really, really good stuff where you can tell the romance seemed genuine, didn't seem to be beating you over the head with it. And then they, get together, stuff like that. There's a third act, part where the husband calls Charlotte back to London. A little bit later, Mary, gets, summoned to London because Charlotte wants her to come and see her. And that was just to maybe visit the stuff in the British Museum. Mary wanted Charlotte to live with her. Or Charlotte wanted Mary to live with her, rather. And Mary's kind of taken aback. She's like, well, I have my family. The mother had passed away, so maybe Charlotte felt she had less incentive. But, she was like, well, you're keeping me kind of like a bird in a cage, this kind of stuff. So she leaves, she goes to the museum, and the movie ends with them staring at each other over Mary's, fossil find that she had to sell off to basically take care of her mother. And it's a really good ending and really good stuff. And I really actually enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I wasn't sure how to take it at first, but I knew with Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan, they were going to do some really good stuff, and they certainly did. And again, everything as far as a technical, production is fucking phenomenal. Locations, music, cinematography is fucking beautiful, and the acting really is goddamn good. But Winslet and Ronan keep this thing, keep this thing grounded, but also elevate it way the fuck up where it would have been if they had had any other two, as the pair. Anyway, I'm going to give it an A. It's a really, really fucking good movie. Anyway, agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.